Well, thank you. I'm certainly happy to be here, and it seems we have a full house. So excited to be speaking about this topic. We work with quite a few organizations in the high-tech space, and certainly getting the website right and helping drive conversion and ultimately sales and revenue is an area of focus, and marketers are constantly looking to improve experiences in that area. I'll kick off by quickly introducing who we are, eDynamic, and then we'll get right into the webinar. We're a digital marketing and technology agency, and what we really do is that we help our clients acquire and engage customers through the use of strategy, experience, and technology. High tech is an area of focus for us, so we have a lot of organizations, software product companies, hardware organizations, communications organizations who reach out to us and use our services to help them with best-in-class digital capabilities. And our focus, as I mentioned, is really towards helping high-tech digital marketers through strategy, experience, and technology, all the way from thinking about demand generation to getting the right experience and then implementing underlying technology such as marketing automation, content management, and so on. So let's talk about what we're going to cover today. So our focus is on really talking about how high-tech websites can be made successful. So these are websites with software product companies, hardware product organizations, communication companies. And what we're going to talk about is really the importance of websites. Quite often, even websites as an asset gets questioned from a perspective of leadership questions. Well, why are we spending so much money and investment in fixing a website? Shouldn't we be investing in a sales team and those type of things? So we'll talk a little bit about the importance of websites for high-tech organizations. We'll start to also talk about challenges that you marketers and technologists even face in having successful sites that meet your objectives. And finally, we'll talk about the roadmap for success. And that's where actually we'll spend the majority of our time today. So we've got a lot of material to cover, and this will be available later. But these are the three main topics that we're going to cover. So what is the importance of your website? So your website is really the window to your company. Quite often, it may be the first touch point with your organization. And it really is the window to your world that drives the first impression, and it quite often, if it's not done right, it potentially could be the last impression that you leave with a prospect. So it's really important to get your website right. And the importance of the website cannot be overstated. What we're seeing is that the types of buyers out there are changing. Buyers are driving the selection process for a vendor. So buyers are out there, they identify opportunities. Your clients and customers are identifying opportunities, and quite often they're approaching you with opportunities. So what we're seeing is that there's a shift occurring where buyers are being found by they are finding you, and this shift is becoming more and more pronounced. So what's interesting is that this whole journey of finding the right vendor through the buying process is something being driven by the buyers. And what we're seeing is that the website quite often is the most important digital marketing asset that's being used to drive the buying life cycle. So the website is being used by marketers to really engage with the audience, and that's where a lot of the focus and the investment goes. So the importance of the website cannot be overstated in that regard. So what are some of the challenges that you face? So the biggest challenge that we hear constantly from our customers is that they have great websites, but the conversion is really low. What that really means is the conversion to leads and customers. And we're finding that buyers have a lot of options. So when they interact with you, that moment of truth that occurs with your asset has to be meaningful. If it isn't, conversion is going to be poor. And the funny thing about conversions is that even if you have great conversions today, things are moving so quickly, your competitors are catching up with you, your conversion rates will not remain the same. So it's a battle. You're running this marathon that seemingly never ends, and you have to sprint through it. And because you've got to continue to improve your assets, continue to manage conversions. So the biggest issue we hear our clients talk about to us is around conversion. And I think what we're seeing is that websites quite often have this approach of everything for everyone. And traditional websites with these information repositories, and in a lot of ways, many websites haven't really changed. They may look prettier, but they still are everything for everyone. So think of your customer coming to your website with a shovel and trying to dig through your website to find the right relevant information. And what we're finding is that these information repositories, especially at high-tech organizations where there's so much information that they become quite frustrating to navigate and use. So, this one-way conversation that websites have been used for causes a bit of a challenge. I've alluded to everything for everyone. Again, you go to the website and the idea is if we just pray everything out there and pray, something's going to come back. And that's no longer the case. Buyers come to the site, they expect a certain type of experience where you are speaking to them in a one-to-one manner. So there are ways to engage with buyers so that you can engage with different segments of buyers in a meaningful manner. So having an approach of just putting a website out there where buyers come to your site and they have to look for information because it's everything for everyone, those days are now changing very, very quickly. We also see that the channels are not connected, and that's where the engagement either leads to confusion at the customer end, or we find that the engagement is you're dropping off and losing opportunities. So for example, if someone visits your website, you need capabilities to engage through email in a meaningful manner thereafter. So if someone's on your website touching content, telling you what they're interested in through navigating your website, and they leave information about themselves through the website, then email automation or email marketing has got to be engaged in a manner that you target them with relevant, targeted information, as opposed to, again, spraying them with just about anything that may not engage them. So channels have to be working together to target prospects in a meaningful manner. And the other, we talked about the quality of, the conversion. Ultimately, quality of leads is really poor, and that causes friction between sales and marketing. B2B high-tech organization, we continue to hear from sales that what marketing sends their way, it's all junk. And over time, actually, it's interesting. It's getting more pronounced, and especially in the last couple of years where competition's become a lot more. We're finding that the quality of leads is actually deteriorating, and it's because the type of information that you're capturing and how you're scoring your opportunities that come to the site and prioritizing that for your sales teams is not perhaps being done just as well. So these are some of the issues that I would say that we hear from our clients when they speak about their digital assets. And some of these might resonate with you. And with that, actually, at this point, I'd like to do a bit of a poll to see what you folks are seeing. So I'm going to switch over to a poll at this point. Can the meeting organizer launch the poll? I think maybe having some technical difficulties in launching the poll. I just want to make sure that we are. All right. Great. So I think I just saw the results. Interesting. So it seems that driving high-quality leads is really the area of concern that you see as digital marketers in terms of driving conversion for your site. And that's consistent. You know, it's driving high-quality leads just requires so much. It's quite often the end product. So having an engaging site to be able to track the prospects across the site, to be able to score them and capture meaningful information through a two-way dialogue where you have to give something to get their information. It's not easy. And therefore, I'm not surprised that driving high-quality leads is the #1 area of concern. It's certainly something that we see as well. All right. Moving on to the next slide. So this road to success of how do you get to an engaging experience that meets your prospects' needs and drives those high-quality leads, makes your site engaging, makes it easy to maintain. So the paths that we quite often recommend to our clients is, and again, these are just elements of the path, and you as digital marketers have to really assess what meets your needs. But it starts with your digital strategy. Quite often what we find is that you have assets that you have to roll out, but the strategy linked to building out the asset is quite often not that either well thought out or detailed. And I think you should take the time to really define your digital strategy, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Target the buying life cycle. So this is quite important, and this is a shift that's occurring where design is no longer, about just thinking about that persona. Someone drinks coffee at 4 p.m. and during the day, and this person has a BlackBerry. That has quite often very little to do with how they make a purchase. The buying life cycle would provide you an objective way to understand how your buyers buy across segments, and then you can create a strategy to design your site to meet those objectives. You need an experience that engages. So how can it be personalized so that your prospects or customers coming to your site are getting information they are looking for and is personalized to them, and perhaps targeting them at the appropriate stage where they are in the buying life cycle? How can you manage content structure? Well, content is the beast here, isn't it? Because with high-tech organizations, there's a lot of product information. There's a lot of product information related to support, potentially helping the customer make a purchase. And it's difficult to structure the content and present it in a manner that's meaningful and easy to consume. And an experience that wants people to take the next step further to drive conversion. We'll also talk about cohesive digital technology. By that, I mean you take digital technology that drives your digital experience, so namely specifically the content management system, your search and analytics tools, and CRM marketing automation, all coming together. Obviously, the CMS is a critical tool, but other tools are just as important to drive conversion. Multi-channel engagement. So your asset, your website is no longer a website, is it? It's this mobile and web experience all coming together now. But you also consider how email engages with the mobile, the tablet, and the web experience. Testing and optimization. So you've got to continuously test and optimize the experience, and there needs to be a strategy around that as opposed to a haphazard approach to essentially optimizing this based on what looks good. And that's quite important, actually. That's one of the most important factors to drive success. Search is a very important tool on any high-tech site. Information is, no matter how good of a job that you do at structuring content, typically you'll have a lot of information, and search has to provide the capability to get to information quickly. We're also finding that high-tech organizations almost across the board are starting to use community and social media to drive engagement and that two-way dialogue with their customers to better engage with them, help their customers self-service. So these are some of the, and there are many more areas, but these are some of the critical things that typically we talk about with our customers when we think about creating a best-of-breed digital asset, such as a website, and then ultimately ensuring that it's successful. So let's talk about digital strategy. What we're seeing is that there's this change occurring in terms of how websites are constructed and the types of websites out there. So, the 2000 and 2007, there were these transactional to persuasive sites, which are the ones that are out there today. They're marketing driven and they focus on the business solution, but there's still one way. You're trying to persuade the audience to take a decision based on the information you offer, but it's still a little bit of spray and pray, and while marketers have tools to control the site, you have very little management of the site. Where things are moving from our point of view is this contextual and collaborative experience. This contextual and collaborative experience is social, it's personal, it's interactive, it's mobile. This experience really helps to drive this meaningful interaction with your customers. And this experience is what you have to think about when you think about your strategy. Understanding where you are today. You perhaps are transactional, you perhaps are persuasive, perhaps you're between persuasive and contextual, and coming up with a roadmap and a strategy that helps you get to this social, personal, interactive experience, which is highly engaging. And that roadmap quite often will include a number of capabilities, and this is something that we can share with you. But when you think about optimizing your website or automating it, ultimately getting to engagement where the focus is relevant one-to-one conversations with your customers, building that customer profile, having KPIs which are linked to CRM, having deep relationships with the advocates. Ultimately, that's where the engaging experience comes from. And thinking about those goals as part of your digital strategy by understanding where you are today and where you need to get to and constructing this map will help you put a plan together to get to a highly engaging experience. So think about where you are on the digital marketing curve and think about how and where you need to get to. Everything requires investments, so it's important to understand where you are and where you need to get to. So let's talk a little bit about this buying life cycle, that notion that I touched on in one of the earlier slides. The notion of the buying life cycle is quite important, and the reason is something that I touched on a few minutes ago, that the buyer is in control. And the buyer is coming to your website, and it becomes one of your key tools through which they're engaging with you. And if you're not satisfying them, there's a likelihood that they will buy from someone else. So it's quite important that you understand that the website is a critical tool in this buyer 2.0 era, where the buyer is driving the acquisition process. And this buyer is going through what we call the buying life cycle. So it starts with need recognition, where a buyer starts to understand that they have a need, they start to look for information, they evaluate some alternatives, they make a purchase decision, and they evaluate post-purchase, and perhaps they engage with you on an ongoing basis. And that's the buying life cycle. That is a pretty generic buying life cycle, but most organizations do need to take the time to really think about what's their buying life cycle so they can design an experience which is wrapped around this buying life cycle. And this buying life cycle would typically have segments. So most organizations out there are typically targeting different types of segments based on either the product that they're selling or based on the size of the customer base or the industry that they belong to. There are typically various segments, and each segment typically will have a buying life cycle all the way from need recognition to making a purchase decision. And there's criteria that you have to go through, that the buyer goes through, moving from one stage to another. So it's important to really think about what those criteria are and then identify messaging targeted towards those stages in the buying life cycle. And when you do that, you start to really map out the buying life cycle for your buyers. In this case, for example, if there's an IT buyer looking for, a B2B software product, they will start to really think about what are the problems that they need to solve. Is this product, is it a technical fit for us? What is the capability of the product? What is the performance needs that they have? Then they'll start to evaluate options. They may reach out to you. They would ask for demos. They would perhaps talk to your professional services teams if those happen to be in place. And then they'll start to think about, well, how will that fit into our environment? Are there references, and who else is using your product? And once they make a decision, then you have to support them and provide upsell capabilities. So if you're able to map the buying life cycle and criteria against them, you're able to then really think about how you can design the web experience for your website to meet different segments buying life cycle. So I'll give you an example. So references. Perhaps if you can track where through your website content management and analytics where the buyer is in the buying life cycle, you can target them with, you can think about having reference-related content on your website. So having testimonials and so on. And those testimonials can be dynamic so that if you can track where the buyers in the buying life cycle by tracking through analytics where how much content they consumed and so on, you can then target them with, if they land on your website, perhaps in some real estate on the site, you can target them with a testimonial or video, perhaps. So that makes the site very engaging, dynamic, and drives that experience which is targeted towards the buying life cycle. So depending on the information, you can put dynamic content on the site which is targeted towards different segments and starts to then engage the audience in a different manner. So again, the point being this one-size-fits-all approach, it needs to change, and it is changing with a lot of organizations, and I think it's going to become prevalent, especially in high-tech organizations where you folks are at the bleeding edge quite often of digital marketing. And it'll start to become, this personalized experience which is targeted towards different segments because the technology can support it. It's a matter of having the strategy to be able to think through what the buying life cycle is and how it actually comes together. So let's also talk about technologies, because to enable the experience and the to be able to track things, you need the appropriate technology. And the technologies which are out there that help you drive conversion, a recent survey by Marketing Sherpa indicated that the content management system, the email, the web analytics platform are critical capabilities that you need, along with on-site search, to drive conversion. And the content management system with the on-site search is critical for your website along with the analytics tools. So having these capabilities will help you drive conversion on your website and make you successful. So the content management technology which are out there, it's beyond content management now. It really becomes the center of your digital platform strategy. It's no longer about managing content, it's about managing the experience. And vendors are starting to think about how to manage the experience better, how to drive, for example, experiences which are personalized through rules. So it's no longer about content, it's more about managing the experience across multiple channels. And as you think about the appropriate technology, you should consider the appropriate technology platform. You should understand how these tools meet your goals. You should consider beyond just content management, how do they help you with experience management? And there are multiple platforms out there. Some of the ones that we recommend are Sitecore, Day, Tridian, there's Autonomy, Factfire. There's just thousands of them out there, the content management system. So important, important thing is to pick one which meets your needs and one that you feel will help you drive conversion. The other technology that's quite important is site search. Quite often this is included with CMS platforms, but it may not be. But search is one of the most critical pieces of your site because it may drive the overall experience. Given the amount of content that you may have on your site, it may drive an experience which is targeted towards that content. So having appropriate search where users can go and easily find the information they're looking for through perhaps a multifaceted strategy or drill-down strategy will allow your users to be successful in finding the information and engaging with you. Analytics cannot be, analytics perhaps one of the most important pieces of your site, and now you need to truly have cross-platform analytics so that you're able to see information across channels, so email, web, mobile, and you're not trying to pull all that together, and perhaps now even with social, to really see what is the digital footprint of your buyers. What are they looking for? How are they engaging with you across channels? And how does the website, along with mobile and email and social, come together to really help them, the buyers, make that informed decision about your products? So analytics, the importance cannot be overstated. It's one of the most important pieces and quite often is overlooked. So when you think about your capabilities, especially with B2B high-tech organizations, we find the content management, the CRM, marketing automation, and driving the common customer context to analytics is perhaps one of the three key capabilities, along with analytics being the fourth one, that you really need to drive digital engagement. The web content management will drive your website, but all three pieces need to be connected for you to be successful. And as I mentioned, once your capabilities are connected, websites, the landing pages, the emails, the forms, they all come together to actually work together to drive acquisition. So they'll drive personalized experiences through common rules, and you're able to engage better with your audience. So let's talk about engaging experiences. So if you have the right technology, you have the right strategy, you really need to ensure that you align with the branding of your organization so that the experience you offer is really meaningful and it's personalized for your organization. So quite often what you have to ask yourself is, does the site align with your brand positioning? You know, it could be a nicely architected site, but if it does not really align with your brand positioning, it would ultimately not convey the brand value effectively. Does the site cater to user needs? So does the site really cater to the needs of the users and the types of information that they're looking for? The other key issue when it comes to the experience is, do these sites have a lot of content? So most organizations in the high-tech space would have quite a bit of content on their site, all the way from product information, specifications for the products to supporting community. All that information is buried in the site. So there's a lot of content and information available on the site. And we recommend that you really need, when you go down the journey of building your website, think about the right information architecture. Perhaps it's even more important than design. And pick the right CMS, a content management system that can drive the structure of your website and improve the experience. So information architecture for high-tech websites, it's very, very important to get right. Further, you should really merchandise your products. And, you know, Apple does an amazing job in merchandising, you know, actually solid, hard products. But even intangible products, like software products, can be merchandised. And it's quite important to create that tangible feeling, even with soft purchases. So it's something to keep in mind when you think about driving engagement on your site. How do you merchandise the information of the products that you have on your site so they feel like real products, even if they're intangible? Personalization, we touched on that. B2C sites perhaps provide the best examples of personalization. However, the good news is that technology has become somewhat commoditized. So B2B marketers can really leverage all that investment and innovation that has happened in B2C and now is available commonly through the technologies we spoke about, such as a content management system to drive personalization. Personalization will make the experience meaningful. It will ensure that visitors get the information they need in real time. And the less time the visitors spend searching for information, the closer they are to converting and becoming a customer of yours. And what's important is to get this integrated view to drive personalization. So if you're not able to get what is the online behavior of the prospect? If they're a customer, what is the behavior from a customer service perspective? If they visited your site numerous times, what does that engagement look like? So if you're not able to pull all that information together, you're not going to get that common view or the integrated view of the customer, and you're not going to be able to create rules and under any technology that you may have to actually drive meaningful information back to the user. So getting an integrated view of the customer across channels and across all the data sets that you have is quite important ultimately in engagement and driving conversion. So how do you start to put this in practice? It's very important to understand customer context. It's very important to develop content that targets the buying life cycle, the content that matters. It's very important to deliver the content and engage audiences in a really a real-time, aligned, unified, multi-channel manner. And once you start to do that, you can start to pull information from visitor-generated information. So if someone's visiting your website, they leave a digital footprint that analytics can provide. You can ask visitors for information. When they register for information, ask for name and appropriate information that you can target them. And then you can also start to look at externally supplied information. So based on the IP, you can look up which industry the buyer is coming from, what does their profile look like. So there's a lot of external information providers that can provide that information to you. So you can get the context to personalize the website against the needs of the buyer and the user. So here's an example of one of our clients out there who is personalizing their site, where they track the navigation and the usage of their site. If someone visits the site, every step is tracked. And that tracking then drives an experience which is relevant. So based on how that information is captured from their digital footprint, if they were to return to the site, if they're interested in a particular product per se, and that's where they spend the majority of their time, rules on the site can drive an experience which is relevant and targeted. And here's another example where the website determines that this is an existing customer, and when they visit the website, they would actually present, for example, login screen. So it's very relevant, and the user feels that the site is meant for them. And you can drive personalization all the way from having targeted imagery, to content, to information. So quite often, product companies are, they're targeting different verticals. So if you have something for high tech, or if you're relevant for insurance or financial services, you could have imagery which is more relevant to that industry. And that can be accomplished through personalization, and it's not too difficult to do that anymore. Best technologies become commoditized. So if you offer that engaging experience, you will find that you'll get better conversion on your site. The other thing that's quite important is call to action. If the engagement is there, having the right lead forms and information for your buyers to actually convert is quite important. So conversion will require you to have the right call to action across your sites, whether it's lead form, phone numbers, etc., for buyers to convert. And the tactics that really drive conversion include call to action, getting the right offers and promotion, getting the right copy. So if you're not getting the right conversion, think about these things that you see here based on a survey that indicates that layouts, page copy, call to action are all important in driving conversion. And thereafter, you've got to test. You've got to continuously test and improve. And what I mean by that is use tactics like A/B testing, multivariate testing, to continuously improve the content, the experience, and to continuously test. So once the site is launched, you should have the tools, and many content management systems or technologies such as those out there now would have these tools inbuilt, which will allow marketers to go in and really have the levers to manage the experience, test different messaging, and continuously improve. This is a never-ending cycle. So if you were to do this, you will see improvement to the extent that we've seen, and from different research, including this one, where 70% people actually using these tools saw immense improvement in conversion rates. If conversion is an issue, continuously test. It's also important to be multi-channel. So multi-channel now means that you must have a mobile strategy. And quite often, you're making decisions around, well, do you need a responsive website? And if you do, then thinking about the right type of technologies and assets to be able to create that responsive experience. So when you're thinking about responsive experiences, it may not be the ideal solution for you depending on what your needs are. So you have to ask yourself, well, what's important to you? Is ease of updating the site? In that case, responsive design is more important than having a separate mobile site. Is cost an issue? Then perhaps having separate sites is perhaps a better option. So having the considerations around which route to take, whether you need a separate mobile site, really going down the responsive design approach, can help you make decisions on the appropriate mechanism to choose. So here are a couple of examples of responsive sites that, depending on the different device, would automatically manage the experience for that device. So you don't have to worry about defining different experiences for different devices and investing a lot of money and time and energy in getting it right. So we talked about search and findability of information. This is perhaps one of the more important aspects of any high-tech website. And we're seeing that high-tech organizations across the board are investing heavily in getting search and guided navigation. So there's technology available that makes finding information much, much simpler on sites. And then experiences are moving from just general search to really multifaceted search on sites. So findability starts to become a differentiator for your website. So we're finding that the leading websites out there are really investing heavily in search and navigation, and they become key assets in the site. So customers, when they come looking for information, whether it's SKUs or products and so on, they can look for information themselves, find it very quickly, and ultimately get the information they need to make that informed decision. So when you think about search, think about things such as type ahead capabilities, think about guided navigation, faceted search. It's all about allowing the user to use the mechanism they're comfortable with to get the information they need. Product Selector is another example that Texas Instruments have done a good job with, where they have a more complicated offering and they need to get to the right specific option. So search can go from simple faceted search to highly customized solutions as well. Membership and community is becoming more and more important to high-tech websites. Customers ultimately need to become evangelists for your products, and you're looking to lower costs of servicing. So community has become a great way for you to continue to engage with them, and this is all merged with your website experience. So existing customers or prospects can come to your site and become a part of the community and ultimately have continuous engagement with you. Dell does a phenomenal job with their community. They have implemented numerous capabilities in their community, including Idea Storm, where customers can give ideas. And the data point out there is that it's one of the highest ROI items that Marcom has implemented in Dell. So that's something to think about for your own website. So convenience is quite important. So when you think about various community uses, finding information, identifying relevant information, ultimately improving convenience is important as you think and plan for your community. Apple does a great job in offering a clean, easy-to-use community. You can ask a question, there's direct call to actions. Tutorials are nicely integrated back into the community. So community can be beyond just, forums, for example. It can truly be engagement mechanisms with your audiences. So that covers our presentation for today. At this point, I will ask you to post any questions that you may have for me, and I'd be happy to answer those. Can the organizer pull the questions together, please?
Yeah, Rahul, we do have a few questions coming in. First question is, what is the importance of buying life cycle in designing a website?
I think it's quite important. The buying life cycle essentially tells you how your buyers are buying. So if you understand how your buyers are buying, the criteria they go through to make a purchase decision, then you should be thinking about the logical thing to do is design an experience that targets the buying life cycle. So all the way from having the information that satisfies the criteria for different segments, all the way to personalizing the site for different segments in the buying life cycle. So there's numerous uses to drive the experience, all the way from information architecture to content to driving a personalized experience.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the difference in running a setup like this in-house versus outsourcing?
That's a great question. There are benefits both ways. It's all about bandwidth and capability. So to build a large site which requires skill sets that perhaps are difficult to have in-house constantly. So you need skill sets who have best of breed knowledge of what does it take to create, the market-leading site. So if you have that knowledge in-house, then that's great, but you'll need skill sets on the particular content management system you use for your website or other technologies that you use, and then you need the skill set for having best of breed experience, I would say. Pursuant to actually building the site, quite often organizations would bring them in, and at that point, it's not necessary that they bring them in, but quite often they may. And at that point, you need skill sets to really improve the experience. So that means having testing experience around A/B, multivariate testing, and having the tools to be able to do that is quite important. So having the bandwidth, the right resources to execute against that is important.
The next question is, what are the benefits of connecting marketing automation and CMS tools?
We've seen it really helps to drive conversion. So if someone visits your website and they have a digital footprint across your site, if you can track that into your marketing automation tools, like having analytics underneath, you will find that then you can target those prospects in a one-to-one manner. Looking at the digital footprint, you can segment that person or the individual on your site and really understand what is important to them and then target them with relevant information. And when they receive information, say through email from you, and they visit your website can then pull information from marketing automation tools to personalize the experience for that visitor. So what you're really trying to do is getting that single view of the customer through across channels by connecting these two capabilities, and then treating that customer in a one-to-one manner through the use of these technologies.
The next question is, we are going to implement a new website. What should be our next steps?
Well, once you're thinking about implementing the site, quite often the internal steps are to think about your digital strategy. And I can't overstate that. It's just quite often, organizations jump into designing their website and they're trying to implement every bell and whistle out there, and it's quite often not necessary. So understanding what your strategy is, where you are in the digital maturity curve, where you need to get to, and then understanding the buying life cycle of your buyers, and really thinking strategically about how to target that buying life cycle should be what you should be doing even before you start the project or actually building your website.
We have one last question, which is, how can we personalize the experience for our website visitors?
There are quite a few tools available. Many content management systems have these tools available within these capabilities. So content management has gone beyond content management, and now it's all about experience management. So these tools allow you to set rules, and these rules based on the customer context can drive experience. So as an example, if someone visits your website and you have some real estate, say you have 3 rails on your website, one of the rails can be more experience-oriented. So depending on what their digital footprint is, looking up which industry they belong to, and you can, again, you may have this information in your CRM, or you can externally ping demand base and the other providers, list providers who can look up where this IP is coming from. All that information you can gather in real time into the CMS, and then you can have rules to target that particular individual. So I'll give you some examples. Someone visits your website, you look up the IP through something like a demand base or any listing provider, and then based on the industry they're coming from, the tool that the CMS that you've implemented can actually have targeted content imagery for that industry right on the homepage, and this can be all done in real time. Or if an existing prospect comes to your site and you already have, they're registered with you for some piece of content and you know who they are, you can then pull that information from your backend systems and then paint an experience which is targeted towards them. So these are a couple of examples where you're getting context through your internal systems, through external providers, and using that context to drive a personalized experience through the technology that's out there.
Thank you, Rahul. We've covered all the questions.
All right. Excellent. My information will be available. We'll send you an email with my information. I see there's other questions coming in as well, but I believe we're going to wrap up. So thank you for attending the webinar, and if you have any further questions, do reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer those. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.